The former Leeds and Scotland football star Billy Bremner has died in hospital after a suspected heart attack. He was 54. Bremner made his debut for Leeds United as a 17-year-old and captained the side during its most successful years.
Jones trying to feed on it, Bremner! 1-0!
For anyone who watched football in the late 60s and early 70s, Billy Bremner was one of its most fiery and successful characters. He played for Leeds for 17 years, picking up every domestic honour. In the 60s, he helped them win the Intercities Fairs Cup, the League Cup and the League Championship. By 1971, he was voted Footballer of the Year. Bremner's uncompromising and competitive style made Leeds the team everyone wanted to beat. Much of his success was under manager Don Revie, and together they won the FA Cup in 1972 and the Championship again in 1974. His success, though, was marred by a less than distinguished disciplinary record. A flare-up with Kevin Keegan during the 1974 Charity Shield resulted in a fine and a ban for bringing the game into disrepute. Another bust-up in a Copenhagen nightclub got him a life ban from the national side, but he did manage 54 appearances for Scotland and captained his country during the 74 World Cup finals. His former teammates will remember him for his passion for the game.
He'd roll his sleeves up and he'd demand effort from everybody, and sometimes he got results out of nowhere, and it was all down to his fiery attitude, his will to win. And I think when the fans think of Billy, that's what they'll remember from: total commitment, total effort for the cause.
His efforts established Leeds as a major force in British and European football. They may have to wait a long time for another such influential figure. Nigel Gainsborough, BBC News.
Billy Bremner, who died earlier today.
Hold up here, and there's been an extra chill in the air with that sad news about Billy Bremner today. Andy, your memories of one of football's great warriors?
Well, I think anyone who grew up in my era, Martin, I was born around about the 1950s, 55, would have grown up watching Billy Bremner at his very, very best. If you're a Scot and you're a football fan, then I have to say Billy Bremner ranks up there amongst the very, very best. I remember vividly his leadership of that magnificent Leeds team under Don Revie, and also his unbelievable performances in a Scotland shirt. And as a teenager, very influenced by it, and I'm saddened deeply by it. My thoughts go to Billy's wife and near family at the moment, but he will go down as, without a doubt, one of Scotland's greatest ever.
He's left us with some great memories. Well, let's move on to the team news.
Hello, good evening and welcome to Look North. Football is mourning the death of one of its most colourful stars tonight, the Leeds and Scotland player Billy Bremner. He went into hospital on Friday and died of a heart attack in the early hours of this morning. Bryn Law reports.
Bremner.
Billy Bremner will be remembered as the most successful Leeds captain of all time. He led the side through a glorious period in the 60s and early 70s, winning numerous domestic and European honours along the way, then enjoying further success in management at Doncaster and Leeds.
And it was all down to his fiery attitude, his will to win. And I think when the fans think of Billy, that's what they'll remember from: total commitment, total effort for the cause. And it'll be a major blow to everybody in the city, every football fan in the city, certainly.
And so, at last, Leeds have got what they've deserved.
Fans of all ages will mourn the passing of a legendary footballing figure who would have been just 55 years old on Tuesday.
Good evening. Footballing great Billy Bremner has died in hospital today. The former Leeds and Scotland midfielder died from a heart attack at the Doncaster Royal Infirmary this morning. He was 54. Don Riddell looks back on the life of an Elland Road legend.
Tributes were tied to the gates of Elland Road this evening in memory of one of Leeds United's most charismatic figures.
The cup goes to Billy Bremner and Leeds United.
Billy Bremner epitomised Leeds United's dominance of British football in the early 70s. He became a household name alongside such greats as Jack Charlton and John Giles. The fiery Scottish midfielder made 585 appearances for the club that won the FA Cup and 2 league championships.
Anybody who remembers that era, who isn't perhaps so committed to the cause of football that I am, would turn round to you and they'd say, Leeds, Don Revie era, and they'd come round and they'd say, Billy Bremner, captain, incredible, incredible character.
Over the years, people say, well, he weren't a teammate or a friend to me, he was more like a brother. We were like brothers, really, and was probably the brother he never had.
530.
Bremner remained a legend when his playing days were over, and he returned to Leeds as manager. He also had 2 spells at Doncaster Rovers, but it's for his years at Elland Road that he'll always be remembered.
And I think you'd sum Billy up by saying the success years of Leeds, Billy was part of them and they were part of Billy. And I think we owe so much to him.
It was just an outstanding player for Leeds and Scotland.
I was never fortunate enough to see him play. So when he was manager at Leeds, he was just an hero to everybody. He loved Leeds United.
It's 20 years since Bremner played for Leeds. Many current fans will never have seen him play, but to all those who remember his combative skills, driving commitment and inspirational leadership, he'll never be forgotten.
Don Riddell reporting, and joining me now is Julie Lockwood, who's with Peter Lorimer, a teammate and a friend.
Yes, Karen, I'm with Peter Lorimer, who of course played with Billy Bremner at Leeds for 13 years in the 1960s and 70s. Peter, what do you know about his illness?
It came as a shock on Friday when Eddie Gray called me to say that Billy had a minor heart attack, but as far as we all knew, it was only minor, and we thought, well, he'll be okay, but obviously he's deteriorated, and we've heard the sad news now.
Very big shock.
Tremendous shock, because if there was ever a person who was full of life and virality and an abundance of energy, it was Billy. He was tremendous in that way.
How would you sum up his contribution? What was unique about him?
Well, he was a captain of Leeds United and a captain of Scotland, and he was a true captain. When he was on that field, he demanded a 100% effort from the troops, and when things weren't going right, he was the one who would be driving everybody on. He would never ever, he'd never say die, and his attitude was tremendous, and he was totally led by example.
What will you personally miss most about him?
Well, I'll miss the little, calls every now and then, the little practical jokes he used to pull, and just him being around, because he was a guy who he sort of, his enthusiasm rubbed off on everybody, and he made everybody happy.
Sadly missed.
Oh yeah, totally. I am totally dumbfounded at what's gone on and what's happened, and I only hope that his family, can get over this period without any major problems.
Peter, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now back to you, Karen, in the studio.
Thank you, Julie. Today, when the world of football mourns the loss of legendary Leeds United player Billy Bremner. Tonight, flowers were pouring into Elland Road as family and friends try to come to terms with the loss of a local hero at the age of 54.
The death of the former Leeds and Scotland captain Billy Bremner. He was 54. Bremner, who was capped 54 times by Scotland, died in hospital in Doncaster this morning after a suspected heart attack. He was taken ill on Friday night. He was captain of the Leeds team that won the league in 1969 and 1974, the FA Cup as well in 1972, and here the European Affairs Cup in 1968, when Leeds became the first English club to win the competition over 2 legs against Ferencváros in Budapest. They won it again under Bremner in 1971. One of his teammates at Leeds, Terry Cooper, today described him as one of the all-time greats of British football.
Sad loss, because he was a tremendous guy, tremendous skipper. And I saw him about 5 weeks ago at Barnsley, and it was typical Bill. He's put his arms around me, he's come in the dressing room, had a crack, full of enthusiasm as usual. And we'll miss him. I had problems 2 years ago, and he was the first one on the phone, making sure I was all right. And it's a sad loss. It's not sunk in yet.
As a player, how much of a driving force was he on the field, for those who didn't see him playing?
He was a great player, and that term's used loosely at times. He was tip-top, one of the all-time great British players. His feet were so quick. He used to use the ball as a carrot, and in 5-a-side he'd show you the ball and you think, oh, I'll get it. He just used to whip it away from you. Tremendously quick feet. And if you look at his goal scoring record for a midfield player, I think he scored in every major semi-final or final Leeds played in. When we needed him, he was there.
I have a brief word about one of Scotland's greatest ever captains, the death today of Billy Bremner, aged 54. Very, very sad. You must have played against him many times.
You want to see the scars?
Yeah,
I'll show you them. I mean, he was one hard little player, you know, as that Leeds side was in those days. But he was a very, very skillful player, very, very little tiny man, about 5'4", no more. But he was hard as iron. Great pass of the ball, good control. You know, he was an excellent footballer. I mean, nothing but admiration for him as a footballer. As a person, I didn't know him that well because most of the time we were fighting each other. But you know, I find it a very, very sad day that a man of his age should have a heart attack.
54.
I was talking this afternoon to Johnny Giles about him, who was his, you know, his partner, as it were. And John was saying the great thing about him was that he had this bubbling personality, although he was a real hard man on the pitch. He said in the dressing room, he said on the training pitch, he said he had wonderful enthusiasm for the game. And I think he played, I mean, he lived life the hard way. He played football the hard way. He lived life the hard way. And I think he's a great loss, you know. I saw him just a couple of weeks ago at Old Trafford. And he'd no chips on his shoulders about the game was better in my day. He was enthusiastic, although he always referred to Leeds still as we, you know.
Oh, that was his club, wasn't it?
That was his club. But I mean, he'd gone to Old Trafford, he saw them beat Barnsley 7-0, and he was really enthusiastic, especially about little skulls. I think he probably identified the colour of their hair. And he, you know, and he was really, he still had a great enthusiasm for the game.
I think that great side at Leeds at the time, I mean, when Tottenham were a great side, Bill Nicholson used to say that Dave Mackay was the manager on the pitch. He would get the players playing, Danny would be the orchestrator, but Dave was the manager, he would bark out the orders. Well, Billy Bremner was Don Revie on the pitch.
And of course, Dave Mackay and Billy Bremner had that wonderful...
Oh, I mean, anybody remembers it, you know, of Dave Mackay and Billy Bremner. Dave lifted him on the floor, off the floor. I mean, it's a wonderful picture many, many years ago. It would take too long to tell the story, but Billy Bremner had a very sore nose after that.
They still got the picture up in
one of the lounges,
White Hart Lane. In one of the
you must have commentated on many of his games.
Oh, you see, he was a tremendous motivator, wasn't he? You know, and, right at the start, for instance, if he'd been captain of Tottenham yesterday, I doubt whether Chelsea would have won it 6-1.
He'd have given them a good
because
kick up the backside.
He'd have given them a great kick up at the backside when the second goal went in, and but nobody
there
did.
you go. Very sad. That was
very sad.
Billy Bremner, of course, who died today, aged 54, from a heart attack. Right, thanks, chaps.
This morning, following the death of former Leeds and Scotland legend Billy Bremner. He died of a suspected heart attack at the weekend at the age of 54. Bremner made 585 appearances for Leeds United between 1959 and 1976 and played for Scotland 54 times before turning his hand to management. He had 2 spells in charge at Doncaster Rovers, as well as spending 3 years in the manager's chair at Elland Road. Well, Billy's former Leeds and Scotland teammate Eddie Gray, now youth team coach at Elland Road, joins us on the line. Good morning, Eddie.
Good morning.
A terrible loss for everyone. Just can you sum up what he actually meant to the game?
Well, he was a tremendous character, Billy. I mean, he was a great captain for Leeds United and for Scotland. He was a wonderful player. Above all, he was a terrific man. He was full of fun and life, and he'll be sorely missed.
Very passionate and proud of his game as well, wasn't he? Especially of Leeds United.
Very passionate about Leeds United. I mean, he always thought Leeds United was his club, and still comes down to a game. Well, he still used to come down to games to watch the team play, and he still is passionate about the club and the players, and very passionate about his country as well when he played for Scotland.
I only met him a couple of times, but he always put you at your ease when you met him straight away, and always wanted to talk football.
Oh, he's that type of character, Billy. He was the life and soul of the party, and he loved talking about football. He was a very witty man, and as I said, that everybody connected with the club will miss him. You know, players and ex-players and supporters, and everybody connected with football, really.
He'll be remembered as a bit of a battler as well, won't he?
Well, he was a fiery character, Billy, on the football park. I mean, he got himself in a few scrapes over the year, but that was part of his nature. Probably that was the part of him that made him the wonderful player he was.
Eddie, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to us this morning.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
He was Mr. Competitive, the captain who led Leeds United to glory at home and in Europe. Billy Bremner became known as King Billy, and supporters say he's simply a legend.
Well, he did a lot for Leeds United. It was the best thing that happened. Brought them up from scratch and built them to what they are now.
He meant a lot to me. He was a fantastic player at this club, and he'll always be remembered.
Well, in the words of one famous match commentator, he shone like a beacon on a dark and drizzly afternoon. Billy Bremner, the footballer who skippered that famous Leeds United side of the 60s and 70s, died yesterday in Doncaster Royal Infirmary after suffering a heart attack just 2 days before his 55th birthday. Now, in a moment, we'll be speaking to his former teammates in that great Leeds side and hearing from the fans mourning his tragic death. But first, Will Venters assesses the career of the man who, as we now know, became known as King Billy.
The team that was feared across Britain and the world, designed by Don Revie and led fearlessly by Billy Bremner. Billy's motto in a plaque above his dressing room coat peg was "Keep fighting." At only 5'5" and 10 stone, Bremner was living proof that football's a game where skill and tenacity can overcome physical presence. His leadership of the great Leeds side was built on his tireless and battling philosophy.
I think team spirit is a big factor. The same way any team that gets success, they've got to have great team spirit, and we've got it here. It's been installed in us from when we were ground staff boys. We were all brought up together in the ground staff. I think this is a big factor here.
Sometimes, of course, his temperament was as far as his famous red hair. Brawls and bookings were frequent in his early career. Born in Stirling in Scotland in 1942, a Celtic fan, the Glasgow Giants missed out on his signature and he came to Leeds to make his debut in 1960. In a glittering career, he was Footballer of the Year in 1970. He made more than 700 appearances in the white shirt of Leeds he loved so much. The club had been in football's doldrums for decades until the arrivals of Bremner and Don Revie galvanised their fortunes. After winning the League Cup in '68, years of unrelenting success lay ahead.
The first major prize for a Yorkshire side in 33 years.
Perhaps the greatest moment in a brilliant career came when Leeds beat old rivals Arsenal in '72's Centenary Cup final. Bremner recalled wiping mud from his hands before he could shake hands with the Queen.
The cup goes to Billy Bremner and Leeds United.
The respect shown for Bremner's Leeds was recalled by Don Revie after the team won their first championship title in 1969 at Liverpool.
I said, Bill, take them to the Cup. Oh, I don't fancy that, boss. I said, go on, take them. So he walked the team, and I can see them walking now towards the Cup, and the Cup, 27,000, went deathly silent. And they let him get within 6 yards with the team of the Cup. Then they all started champions, and they wouldn't let the players off the pitch for 7 minutes.
In their European travels, United won 2 Fairs Cups, but the big prize of the European Cup cruelly eluded them. His winners' medals and achievements on the field bear comparison with any player of his era. Bremner left United in 1975 to play for Hull City, but he couldn't leave football or Yorkshire altogether and went into management at Doncaster. A return to Leeds as manager led to near promotion and an FA Cup semi-final. His name and friendly nature gave him a subsequent career in promotional work and after-dinner speaking. But it's as a player, one of the best in the modern game, and as a truly inspirational captain, he'll be best remembered all over the world.
Will Venters reporting there on the career of Billy Bremner. Well, ever since news of the former Leeds and Scotland captain's death broke, fans have been streaming to Elland Road to pay their own personal respects. His former colleagues have also joined in the glowing tributes. And tonight, Leeds United said they're planning a permanent memorial to one of their greatest ever players. Calendar's Katie Oscroft now reports.
It was still early morning when they began to arrive, the fans to whom Billy Bremner meant so much. The gates of Elland Road gradually became his shrine. The supporters who came here were unable to hide their feelings.
When you meet someone as nice as what you are, you have to come down.
I'm only short, as you can see, and I play football myself. It was a great influence.
Was Leeds United, was the club, nothing more you can say. Goes down in history, you won't forget what he's done.
The Elland Road flag flew at half-mast today in honour of a man who had so many friends in football.
Just a wonderful football player, a great man, great competitor, fiercely proud man, a great family man, and a great friend.
Great character, great leader, outstanding captain, but a completely different character off the pitch. You know, quite one for the funny jokes and quite one for the pranks.
Meanwhile, in the corridors of Elland Road, there are already plans for a lasting tribute to one of the club's heroes.
And there will be a permanent memory to Billy Bremner. It's only right and fitting. But what is also right and fitting is that we talk to his family about what they would like to see here at Elland Road, and of course the fans. And now isn't the time to talk to his family.
And his life and death were marked in the House of Commons.
And Billy was one of the great characters of post-war football, and an inspiring captain for both Scotland and Leeds United, and he'll be sorely missed.
Long after his footballing days were over, Billy Bremner remained a local hero. It's the ordinary people he loved to meet who miss him the most. Fans have been arriving here at Elland Road all day to pay tribute to Billy Bremner, a sign that one of Leeds United's greatest players was also one of the best loved.
Absolutely. Kelly Oscroft reporting there. Well, we're really pleased to tell you that in the studio right now is two of Billy's teammates from that famous Leeds United team. You know who they are, Norman Hunter and Peter Lorimer. Peter, take us through on the dressing room and on the pitch. Let's talk about Billy the man and what he's playing football. Every team's got its motivators, its quiet men. What were your images of Billy?
Well, Billy was the heart of the dressing room. You know, he was Revie's man to get the boys going all the time. That was his job. You know, he was his lieutenant. Don would like to come out, and Billy would get all the lads going, and a few jokes here, a few pranks, and he was terrific. And after the game, when you went out for him for the drink, he had an abundance of energy, and it kept just spilling and breeding enthusiasm through the team.
But interesting enough, Billy, you know, speaking about a month ago, one of his jokes was that the team feared Jack Charlton, and nobody dared tell Jack Charlton when an own goal happened. But in fact, I'm sure you feared Billy a bit if you let him down as a motivation.
Well, of course, because, you know, we knew the relationship he had with the boss, that he was expected to do that. So if you had a bad word to Billy, obviously the manager had you in, so you couldn't do that. Not that it was any problem, but he had a job to do, and there was nobody finer. Great inspirational leader.
Absolutely. Now, Norman, huge tribute today from everybody, but I know that you feel that to a certain extent they've just missed the man a little bit, that there's something you wanted to add to the whole thing.
Well, I thought that they were just really putting him down as a person who had great ability, but was more of a tackler and this tigerish image and things like that. But people have got to remember that Billy Bremner was a world-class player, and I mean world-class. He could do things with the football on games and in training that I could only dream about, you know, and he had this ability to go out, no matter what the situation was, no matter what game it was, to give his best and to play. Right. And great player.
Also, did you feel, either of you, that late yesterday we were watching those sad news bulletins, that the shot of him scrapping with Keegan somehow missed the man again? He wasn't actually full-time dirty, full-time combative and ferocious. You know, that was one game in 12, wasn't it, with Billy?
Well, it's a combination. You've got to have that. All great players have a combination of a tremendous ability and this will to win. And the little fella had that. And I thought it was a little bit out of order to actually show that thing with Keegan, because that was a one-off situation.
That wasn't the man, was it?
That wasn't at all. What they should have been looking at is what the man's done for Leeds United on his playing side all his career.
Just very briefly, gentlemen, let's look at the man off the pitch, because I think Eddie Gray said there he was a great family man as well, and we must remember his family, Peter.
Yes, that's true. It's sad that at this age you should go, because he just, you know, inherited some grandchildren, and he was loving that part of life, and he seemed very, very settled at home, and he couldn't stop talking about the wife and the kids and the grandchildren, and you know, when you've just got to that part of your life, you've probably been looking forward to it, and to miss it, you know, it's a terrible, terrible tragedy.
It is indeed, isn't it?
And I guess what we would say finally, talking of family, nobody was close in the Leeds United team. It's, for you guys, like losing family, isn't it?
Well, it is for us, yes. I got a phone call on Sunday, and Sunday was a blur. You know, I've been associated with Billy from being 16-year-old. When I arrived at Leeds, I went into digs with Billy up in Beeston, and so that stretches about 38, nearly 39 years. So he was part of my life, and I was brought up, and the same with Peter, and he will be missed, sadly.
He will. Peter and Norman, thanks very much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Look North. On the pitch he was certainly no angel, but Billy Bremner's fiery style touched the hearts of soccer fans across Yorkshire.
Today has been marked by tributes from Billy's fellow players as well as his admirers who feel the loss of one of their footballing heroes. Many of them have left floral tributes and remembrance cards at the gates of Leeds United's ground, from where we're now joined by Damien.
Yes, tributes have been arriving here at Elland Road all day from fans who learned of Billy Bremner's death yesterday, just 2 days short of his 55th birthday, from a heart attack. He came to Leeds from Scotland as a teenager and never left. In fact, he dedicated 30 years of his life to football here in Yorkshire. Elland Road became the focus of mourning today as Leeds United supporters paid their own personal tributes. To many of them, the former captain was simply King Billy.
During his 16 years at Elland Road, Billy Bremner won virtually every honour in the game, as Leeds dominated English football throughout the late 60s and 70s. To this day, he retains a unique place in the fans' affections.
Everybody thought about his, his temper, because he were fired, but he had skill were unbelievable, but goals that he scored and all were just unbelievable.
Sad, what can you say? It was Leeds United, wasn't it? That's how it was, Leeds United.
Very sad. Very, very sad, yeah. I hope it's a peace.
Bremner's passing was marked in the traditional manner at the club's training ground this morning. The current Leeds manager played with him for Scotland.
Yeah, a great leader, inspirational captain, but off the pitch had a completely different character. Loved his laugh and his jokes, and was a bit of a practical joker off the pitch. But as soon as he got on the pitch, he wanted to win so badly. And even at cards, I think he always wanted to win, He was just a natural born winner.
Bremner was the heartbeat of Don Revie's team during the Leeds United glory years. It was often said the pair were like father and son. As a skillful but highly combative midfielder, Bremner often ran into trouble with the game's authorities. He was once famously sent off in the Charity Shield match at Wembley after a spat with Kevin Keegan. But his love for the game was never diminished, even after being sacked as Leeds manager 9 years ago.
God, it's the greatest game in the world, and I was privileged to be able to play soccer for I don't know, 15, 20 years and playing and get paid for playing soccer that most people, certainly that I know the Leeds United supporters, would give their right arm to pull that white shirt over their head. And to be able to, I had a great ambition in life, was to be able to manage Leeds United. And I fulfilled that ambition, and no matter what's happened now, nobody will ever take the memory away from me of managing Leeds United Football Club.
Officials at the club revealed today that they're planning a permanent memorial to their former captain. It's a move that's been welcomed by the supporters club.
I think a bigger tribute by the city of Don Revie is overdue, and I think Bremner should be considered at the same time. And what that tribute is, I don't know. Here at the ground, perhaps the gates, other cities are raising statues. I think Leeds have to consider what these two gentlemen have done for the city.
Billy Bremner also played and managed at Hull City and Doncaster Rovers. But it's as the inspirational captain of Leeds United that he'll always be known. History will remember him as one of the greatest players to pull on the famous white shirt. Wonderful memories for Leeds United fans. Well, back here live at Elland Road, I'm joined by Norman Hunter, who played in that great Leeds side with Billy Bremner. Played with him for some 14 years, Norman. What are your feelings tonight?
Well, very, very sad. Sunday was a forgotten day for me when I got a phone call to say that Billy had passed away, but I've got some great memories of him. We've got to remember that. I came to Leeds at nearly 16. Billy was in the same digs as myself. We went through a lot of times together, especially Leeds United, played against him, England v Scotland, and had some marvellous times, had a few kicks at him and different things, but what a great player, and that's what it's got to be remembered.
Difficult to compare players from different generations, but just how good was he?
Well, I think you'd have great difficulty in putting a price on him at the moment, because there's been one or two things seen about him where him and Keegan got sent off, but I think that's got to be forgotten, because I think greatness only comes around now and again, and in my opinion anyway, Billy Bremner was a great player.
They're talking about some kind of permanent memorial down here, Norman. A fitting tribute, you think?
Well, yes, I would think so, Damien, because there's a street for Don Revie somewhere, isn't it? But I don't think anybody knows where that is, and I would say that a tribute to the both of them, because if you think of Don Revie, you think of Billy Bremner, and vice versa, and I would think that a bust of two of them down here, somewhere down at Elland Road, would be a great tribute.
Just finally, how will Leeds United fans remember Billy Bremner?
Well, they'll remember him as what he did on the football field. We'll remember him as an individual, but the fans will think of him as Leeds United skipper, Scotland skipper, and what he produced in the time he wore that white shirt for Leeds United. Great competitor, but a great, great player.
Not a sad day for former players and for fans. Thanks for joining us. Well, from a rather grim Elland Road, this is Damien Johnson reporting live for Look North, here at Elland Road.
Thanks, Damien. Now today's other main story.
Yes, a little preview tonight with memories of Billy Bremner, who died at the weekend at the age of 54. Good night.
Bremner.
Soccer legend Billy Bremner will take place on Thursday. Tributes, of course, have been flooding into the former Leeds United and Scotland star who died from a heart attack on Sunday. He would have actually been 55 today. His funeral will take place on Thursday morning at St Mary's Church in Edlington in Doncaster.
Leeds United football star Billy Bremner. His funeral was held at New Edlington in South Yorkshire and was attended by Bremner's former teammates. Fans waited outside the church to pay their respects. Billy Bremner died on Sunday after a heart attack. He was 54.
Hundreds today, as you may have expected, to line the streets and say goodbye and thank you to one Billy Bremner. One of the greatest footballers of his generation, his sudden death at the weekend left not just the soccer world, but also many ordinary people with a real sense of loss.
His family were accompanied into the church at Edlington near Doncaster by some of the biggest names in football, both past and present. And standing outside were many of his fans, wanting to pay their own respects to the man they called King Billy. Calendar's Katie Oscroft reports.
These were some of his greatest fans. Some of them too young to have seen him play. Some of them old enough to remember how good he was when he was only 16. Many of them had waited for more than an hour. His fellow players were here too. They came because Billy Bremner wasn't just a great footballer, he was a great friend. As hundreds of people stood in silent respect in the village of Edlington, his widow Vicky, his children and his beloved grandson Chad clung to each other for comfort.
Billy, as we know, served his country at football, and he served it with passion and with pride. It was the only way he knew. Billy was captain of one of the greatest club sides that the English game has seen. Leeds United, as well as being the inspirational leader of his country. But Billy, he would want to say too, that he was no different from you or from me.
That grace and mercy await the chosen of the Lord.
It was Alan Clark who read the lesson. He was close to Billy Bremner when they both played for Leeds. They stayed best friends. But it was after the service when the memories started to flow.
The fine words to express him as a player is difficult, but as a friend it's easy because he was always there.
Well, he was a great lad, full of life, full of character, tremendous spirit that everybody spoke about at the service today, and that epitomised Billy's spirit and passion for life and his football.
I'm smiling because that's the way Billy would have been. You know, today, even on the most saddest occasions, Billy would have had a smile on his face, and he was a tremendous wit. And, that's the way I always think of him. A lovely man, fantastic footballer, but above all, I remember his smile.
One of Billy's former teammates, Terry Yoreth, of course, ending that report on a sad day for Yorkshire.
Some of the most famous names in football were there, as were many of his fans. They came to say goodbye to Billy Bremner at his funeral in his home village of Edlington near Doncaster. Hundreds of supporters who couldn't fit into the tiny Catholic church heard him described as a man who loved football and provided the game with many of its immortal moments. Damien Johnson reports.
Many of the biggest names in British football were there. Former Leeds players like Peter Lorimer, Johnny Giles and Paul Reaney were reunited to pay their last respects to their skipper. Hundreds of ordinary supporters listened to the service on loudspeakers outside the tiny church. It was a time to celebrate Billy Bremner's life.
Billy cracked one from a full 40 yards out against Celtic in the European Cup semi-final.
Hunter to Bremner. Way to go! He scored! Bremner's got it!
The throng wild with joy. an immortal moment among immortal moments.
Among the many floral tributes, one from Gordon Strachan and Gary McAllister in memory of the greatest captain. And a childhood friend remembered his first meeting with Billy at a junior trial match in Scotland.
And this little lad saddled up the side of the park with a wee green bike, and he asked if he could get a game. Of course the trainer thought he was too small. He was only 13 and a half at the time. And I spoke to the trainer and I asked him if he would allow him to play and even the sides up. And it was one of the best moves I ever did, because he came on my side and nobody got a kick of the ball after that.
Most people remember him as being a great footballer, but I'll just remember him for his smile. A lovely man.
There were times he used to go up training pitch in his suit and his patent shoes, and he used to come off filthy, like, you know, he just used to love football.
The amounts of money that people have, transfer fees that people are going for nowadays, I mean, just what price Billy Bremner.
Great opponent, but a great character. Loved life, loved football. Little bugger kept making in against us in the 60s, kept popping up in the last minute and scoring goals in the last seconds in semi-finals. So that was Billy.
After the church service, Billy Bremner's coffin was removed for a private cremation. Now Leeds United will consider erecting a permanent memorial to the former captain.
The funeral of Billy Bremner.